Hello. We're starting a new chapter, chapter 4, and we're talking about the benefits from trade, the benefits from exchange. Whenever markets have voluntary transactions, voluntary exchange, benefits are generated for both the buyers and the sellers. And so we're going to build this model on how we look at the benefits from trade. And we're going to start with the demand side first. And so a few terms to know. First of all, we're going to be talking about benefits to consumers. That is the satisfaction we get from consuming food, buying clothes, going on vacations. We receive benefits from the things that we buy. And economists call these benefits utility. And so in chapter 6, we'll talk about utility in a lot more detail. Right now, we'll just introduce the concept. And utility is the benefit we get from consuming goods and services. There's a term known as marginal utility, which we use capital MU for marginal utility. And that's utility per unit consumed. So every time you drink a cup of coffee, every time you eat a sandwich, every time you have a French fry, you receive marginal utility from each of those units. And then your total utility, we use TU for total utility, is equal to all the margin utilities added up. So the total utility of eating, say, some French fries would be the margin utility you get from the first fry, second fry, third fry, and so on, so on, so on. So down here we have a little table that I created. And this could be, say, a local market, maybe once a month. People can bring down fruits, vegetables, bakery items such as cakes. And so we can have maybe potential buyers here. So maybe we have 7 potential buyers. And over here we have our quantities being bought by these individual buyers. And we've ranked them by their willingness to pay. Remember, willingness to pay, we talked about in chapter 3, is the most someone is willing to pay to buy an item. And that's a good measurement of our marginal utility. The utility we get from an item should be equal to the most we're willing to pay, measured in dollars. So one good way or one convenient way to measure utility is by dollars, the amount we're willing to pay at most. So right here we have Mia, who's willing to pay at most $20 for the one cake. And we're going to rank our consumers by the ones willing to pay the most down to the ones willing to pay the least. And so Noah is willing to pay the second amount, $18. Ruby values the cakes, the third most, at $12. Mark's willing to pay $10. Sarah $8, and then we have Mia back in again. So Mia is up here, and Mia is down here as well. So you can buy more than one cake, obviously. And as it turns out, in chapter 6, we'll learn about a principle called the principle of diminishing marginal utility, which means when you buy or when you consume more and more of an item, you receive less and less marginal utility from each additional unit. So obviously the first cake that Mia would buy would give Mia the most utility. And if Mia buys a second one, that probably won't taste as good, or probably can't eat all of it. Some of it might be spoiled, and therefore she's willing to pay a lot less, maybe $6 for it. And then we have Luca, who's willing to pay $4 for the 7th cake. And over here we have the total utilities being added up. And so the 20 comes from Mia. And then Noah brings in 18. Add 18 to the 20 gives us 38. If Ruby buys the 3rd cake, that would add $12 of utility to our market. 12 added to 38 gives us 50. Mark would add 10. And so the increase in the total utility is the margin utility. And then Luca is willing to pay 4 at most. So if Luca does buy the 7th cake, Luca will get $4 of margin utility, which gets added to the previous 74, which is now 78. So our total utility is going to be increasing, but at a decreasing rate. It's decelerating. That's because we ranked our margin utilities from highest to lowest. So yes, our total utility is rising, but each time it goes up by a smaller and smaller amount. And you can see the very last change from number 6 to 7, it only goes up dollars. Now over here, we can transfer these willingness to pay onto a graph here. And the reason why I'm going to do that is we're going to see that this concept is where we get our demand from. And so the first cake, Mia's willing to pay $20 for that. And so if I go up here to 20, And we can generate a little bar graph here. Get my ruler out. And that bar right there represents the margin utility for the first cake. And that goes to Mia. And then Noah would buy the second cake. He's willing to pay at most $18. So I add a second bar. And see, we're ranking our purchases by highest margin utility down to the lowest. Ruby's willing to pay 12. That'll be about there. Mark's willing to pay 10. Sarah's willing to pay 8. Mia's willing to pay 6. And so each bar represents a consumer. And then Luca's willing to pay $4. And again, all these bars represents margin utility. That'll be for the first cake, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. Now this actually represents our demand. If I were to connect these bars here with maybe a curve going down like that, that would map out our demand for cakes here. So start thinking about demand as nothing more than a measurement of our marginal utility. And in fact, you can start thinking that a demand line or curve represents the margin utility for the consumers in that market. Now the next concept is going to be consumer surplus. And consumer surplus is the difference between the price a consumer is willing to pay at most, which is the willingness to pay, WTP, and the price a consumer or a person does pay, which is the market price. And so it's a simple calculation. You take the willingness to pay minus the price, and that comes up with your consumer surplus. What I'll do is I'll stop here. I'll break this up into 2 parts of a lecture just to make it a little shorter.